Before we get started, I just want to point out that this video is going to be a little bit shorter and different than my past reviews because the A4 is technically just the housing for the RTU, which we already did a review on. So if you want a more in-depth review, I would highly suggest going to watch that video instead. I had to order the whole RTU A4 device because I was having a hard time just finding the casing itself. However, I don't regret making that decision. There's something that this device came with that I think we should talk about. So when it comes to the RTU A4, there are 5 things that I want to talk about. The first thing being the price. So when it comes down to the price, the RTU A4 is technically cheaper than the RTU Mini, the original one that I reviewed, which goes for $119. The RTU A4 goes for $103, but the shipping is $23.64, and that seems to be the thing no matter what seller I found. So it is technically cheaper, but it does cost more money when you put in the shipping, or about the same, because when I got my RTU, I actually paid $135, I believe. It seems to have gone down in price recently. There's also seems to be a new RTU-Plus, which is also a housing. You can see the RTU right there inside. That goes for $111. This one just seems to be longer compared to the RTU A4. I do prefer the RTU A4 though. However, just from the pictures, the RTU A4's design is very similar to the Razer Kitsune's, at least the size and the width and everything. So I would still go for that instead. Now, if you already own an RTU, you can actually get the housing itself, the RTU A4 housing itself. Sorry, the Tao website looks really weird, but the housing itself goes for about $5 to $20 if you get like art and stuff. Now, it's a little weird to navigate. I would highly suggest doing this on your phone. It just works better on your phone for some reason. So yeah, if you already own an RTU device, it's extremely cheap, and I highly suggest you buy this. The next thing I want to talk about is the software itself. This is the one thing that made me not regret spending the money I did to get this device instead of just the housing itself.
With the A4, you technically don't even need a broke wingman converter, so you can toss that thing right out.
Well, to an extent. So don't actually toss out your broke wingman converter. When I first plugged in the A4, it threw me off that it came with the PS4 mode activated already. So I decided to plug it into the PS5. To my surprise, the PS5 actually recognized it right away, like it was a DualShock 4 controller, and it let me choose my profile. It let me move around the PS5 home. However, when I try to launch a PS5 game, like Guilty Gear PS5 version, it gave me the error that you can't use this controller on the PS5 with the controller that's plugged in. But the PS5 was recognizing the controller. So I went ahead and downloaded the PS4 version of Guilty Gear Strive because I don't have Street Fighter to really test this out with on PS5. I have it on PC. And to my surprise, it worked natively. And after 8 minutes, it didn't disconnect. So the 8-minute restriction that usually happens when people try to do this without officially flashing their DualShock 4 did not occur to me. I was able to play Guilty Gear Strive, no issues, natively, no broke converter. It just worked. You can pretty much play any PS4 version of any game on the PS5 with this device natively, no broke converter needed. That includes Street Fighter 6, which lets you launch the PS4 version of it if you own the PS5 version. If you own an RTU or the $50 levelist that I reviewed, or a flat box, or any other device that uses a Pico board inside, you can do that yourself as well. However, it's a little bit of a complicated process, and we can't really talk about it on video because flashing a DualShock 4 is illegal apparently. So you would have to go into the OpenStick community Discord and ask for some help there, and maybe they can guide you on how to do that. However, like I said, I'm not able to really talk about it on video. The next thing we're going to talk about is the size. As you guys know, the size was the main concern that I had with the RTU originally. I wasn't really a big fan of how small it is, and you know, got them chunky boy thighs, and it wasn't that comfortable to play with on my lap. The RTU A4 addresses this. This device is pretty much the same size as the Razer Kitsune. However, it is a little bit thicker, but not by much, and it's not really an issue. Overall, the size issue that I had with the original RTU is fixed with this, and it's just extremely comfortable to play with on your lap, at least for me. If you like the small hitboxes, then by all means, this device is probably not for you. The other thing that I liked about this device was the buttons themselves. Now, at first, I did find them a little bit weird, but the more I played with them, the more I got used to it. and I ended up really loving them at the end. They decided to make their own version of arcade style buttons like San was. They went for that design even though this uses PC switches inside. So the feeling overall is very similar to Sanwa buttons. If you've used those in the past, or if you prefer that, you would actually really like this device because it feels like a normal arcade stick, at least when you press the buttons. They are also very quiet compared to all the other buttons that I've used before. Here's a little sound test for you guys. So yeah, if you prefer arcade style buttons and buttons that are more quiet, you will probably love these buttons that come with this device.
The last thing I want to talk about is the disassembly, or assembly in this matter, for this device.
When it comes to the A4, it's extremely easy. It's just a total of 10 hex screws that you have to remove from the device to take it apart. Or if you're putting it together, then you only need the 5 screws that come with the RTU itself, so you can seal it into the case itself. The material itself is just a whole bunch of layers of plexiglass, which you guys know that I liked back when I reviewed the B1 PC, if you remember that. And overall, when it comes to the housing and the whole device itself, it has a little bit of weight to it, and I really liked it. It really felt more premium than it is. So let me give you guys my closing thoughts. If you already own an RTU, this is a no-brainer. It's literally $5 to $20, and it will give your RTU a completely different feeling, a more premium feeling in my opinion, and you should totally get it. If you are in the market for a leverless controller, I would really suggest this one over the original RTU. However, my budget option will always be to go with the $50 Hitbox that I reviewed. Check that one out if you haven't. Overall, I don't really have anything negative to say about this device, since at the end of the day, I was just supposed to give my thoughts on the housing itself. The biggest thing, if we're basing it off the original RTU, is going to be the overall support. Obviously, you're buying this device from AliExpress or another Chinese website. So when it comes to troubleshooting the device or trying to get support in general for it, you're going to have a hard time unless you go to the OpenStick community and ask them, and hopefully they can help you out. With that being said, guys, that's the video. Make sure you thumbs up if you liked it. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.